Well, welcome to Futbol Americas. He is Herculez Gomez representing Ronaldinho today. It's a cool shirt.
Yeah.
Very 90s coded.
I'm not a Barcelona fan. I'm a Ronaldinho fan. He transcends the team, the sport.
I agree with it. Yeah. And if it means you're going to wear a shirt like this, I'm all for it.
I'm all for it too.
Yeah, we're all for this too, because coming up on Futbol Americas, Dortmund sends maybe a clear message to Giovanni Reyna, who is no longer the number 7. We will tell you all about that. Also, Los Grandes de la Liga MX are no longer in the League's Cup. How much do they really care about it, or should they care about it? That's another conversation for a few minutes up. But I'm very excited with the guests that we have today. Obviously, Herc, you're a regular here, but someone else is also a regular. Sebastian Salazar and also Jeff Carlisle. Guys, great to see you. Great to talk to you. Sebi, how's it going? I saw you putting the jacket on earlier. Can you show that off a little bit?
Hey, of course I can. Herc remember this bad boy. They sent us to Russia in the middle of summer in 2018, and they gave us bomber jackets. I guess they thought it was going to be cold. It was actually quite warm. Great to see you guys both. And Cristina, great to see you in the... Is that a Houston Dash kit?
It is.
Beautiful.
Thank you for
Houston
noticing.
Dash kit. Love it. Yep.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you to Houston Dash, because I love it. It's the cosmic jersey. So I'm glad somebody pointed out your Ronaldinho shirt.
Well, I've seen you in those jerseys before.
Yeah, but on Football W.
I didn't know you were in with the Chayo at the NWSL. They don't send me anything. Now, by the way, I didn't know they made those bomber jackets that small. It's good to see that so fits.
Hey, the first
Jeff,
one.
miss you, bud. How you doing?
Good. I actually did have to take it to the tailor.
I mean, yeah, especially after that comment. No, it fits perfectly, Seb. Come on. Jeff, good to see you as well. Let's talk about what front office sports, they had an event in the Hamptons here earlier in the week, and as an invitation, they had Commissioner Don Garber, who talked about MLS metrics. We've talked about this double paywall, Apple, a little bit of everything. Let's listen to what he had to say on his viewership and those numbers, and we'll break it down.
When we signed Messi, I'm as interested as who's watching in Argentina, who's watching in Colombia, Brazil, who's watching in Japan and China and throughout the Middle East, as I am interested in Columbus, Ohio. The media and the pundits just don't get it yet. So I'm not sure we are where we need to be, but I know that we're going to have to get there soon. Other than the hassle of people complaining about it, we feel pretty good.
The hassle of people complaining about it. Seb, is it a get lost here for Commissioner Don Garber?
Yeah, I'll start us off with a get lost. I think I understand the point that he's trying to make, right? But you rarely want to be the guy in the room that thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. And when you're saying the pundits and everybody else doesn't get it, that's kind of what it comes across like here. And what I would say is this. You can talk about pundits not getting it, but when the fans don't get it, when the fans seem to have a problem, that's when you really have an issue. And I think the bigger point here is, right, because you heard it there in the comments as well, a differentiation or maybe a non-differentiation between the international fan and the domestic fan, the local fan. And I think it's very easy for us to get caught up here in, oh, we got a lot of viewers in Brazil and Argentina, and that's an expansion of Major League Soccer. Without getting too far into the TV details of it, the inside baseball of it, the big loss of this television deal is what's happened in the local markets, right? MLS may be its most relevant globally. It's at its least relevant locally, domestically, in the cities where it's actually, has the teams, they have the stadiums, they try to sell the tickets. So I think I understand the defensive nature the commissioner strikes here, but I think you have to be honest with who's complaining. It's your fans that are complaining, and if you're not going to listen to your fans, I think you're missing a pretty serious message. Yeah,
and speaking of those metrics that you mentioned there, Seb, I mean, Don Garber said it himself here a few days ago, Jeff, saying 120,000 unique viewers, that's what they're averaging. We know that Nielsen obviously measures the metrics a little bit different. They focus on average minute audience numbers. As Seb said, we don't want to bore anybody with these numbers, but why would Don Garber come out and want to say these numbers publicly, do you think?
Well, I mean, there's been scant information divulged by both Apple and MLS, and everyone has been clamoring for more information. How is the deal doing? And when you think about that, as well as the fact that there apparently is this opt-out clause midway through the deal, I think fans want to know, and people such as myself want to know, is Apple in this for the long haul, or are they just going to kind of, cut MLS loose and decide that their next streaming project is going to involve someone else? I think Garber's trying to have it both ways a little bit too much here. I mean, he says, that the media doesn't get it, but then he says, well, we're not where we need to be. And that's pretty much what a lot of the media has been saying. And so, I think it's a situation where it's great that they're divulging some numbers, but I think more context is needed. When they say, 120,000 unique viewers, okay, how long are they watching? And how many of those viewers are watching when Lionel Messi is not in the game? I mean, I'd like to see a little bit of comparison in terms of, hey, what did Columbus Crew and Chicago Fire look like? I mean, it can't always be about Inter Miami. And I doubt that someone in Argentina is tuning in to watch Columbus Crew and Chicago Fire. No disrespect to those two teams. I mean, Columbus is one of the most enjoyable teams to watch in the league. So, again, I think it's great that some numbers are starting to trickle out, but I think a lot more information needs to accompany that, and a lot more context is needed.
Listen, Don Garber's not the bad guy here. The commissioner in any league, they're the shield. They're taking the bullets for the owners. The owners, those people in place who did this deal, who voted for this deal, those owners in place of these teams, those are the people you should be asking questions of. Don Garber says he's just as interested in Argentina, in China, whatever the case may be, elsewhere as he is in Columbus. Let me pull the curtain back. I've been here for almost 8 years. And every preseason when we had Major League Soccer as a partner, Don Garber, his deputy commissioner, the powers that be in Major League Soccer would come to this campus, would come to the LA campus, I've been in both, and they would beg ESPN, please, more SportsCenter, please, First Take, please, at that time, High Noon, please, SportsCenter 5 o'clock, all these different types of shows that were on at that time. And we're sitting here, the international people, saying, hey, we will gladly take your Carlos Vela. We will gladly take your Chicharito. We will gladly take Joseph Martinez, Miguel Almiron. We will take Zlatan, etc. And we did.
Yeah.
And so did Fox Deportes, and so did DOESN. And thus so that our viewership went up 73%. Just in the Deportes market, which is North America, right here in the United States. The rest of Latin America exploded. The Zlatan versus Carlos Vela thing was for another time. It was crazy, the Crew movement. And they didn't want Columbus, so that they take away games in Columbus and move them to Cleveland. So let's not sit here and say that this is about sharing the wealth with the rest of the world. No, this is about money. This is about them trying to get the best out of a bad deal. What makes this deal worse is they produce their own games now. So whatever money they are getting, slash that by 55%, 50% if you want. That's a reality of this deal. I don't think Don Garber's going to throw these numbers out just to throw them. I think there's something behind it. He understands what he's getting out there. But the media and the pundits don't get it. It's not the way to go. And I agree with Seb. It's not just the media and the pundits that don't get it. Your own fans don't get it.
Yeah, and that's clearly been the problem as well with Don Garber. And we know that there's been a lot of attention. Anything that has to do with Lionel Messi, we know that obviously the attention, and that can be globally. But I mean, that's why it's important to support local businesses. It's kind of the same thing here with MLS, just take it back home. But when we talk about Don Garber and this Lionel Messi connection, we know that it's kind of been ongoing since the All-Star game. No Messi, it was, no Messi, no problem. But it seems to still have been a problem, especially after that suspension, because a little bit more of what Garber said here in this event with Front Office Sports had to do with the Lionel Messi suspension. So here's a little bit of what he said. I don't think he wants to talk to me. I didn't treat him like any other player in that decision, so I probably won't be going to Miami anytime soon or hanging out and doing any media work with Leo. If you don't do that, suspend him. You're not going to be able to lead. You're not going to be able to command the respect of the ownership. The media is going to on you no matter what. Herc, you can say that word if you want. You guys will write a story. How could you suspend Leo Messi after we suspended him, before we suspended him? Say, how could you not? So the media is irrelevant to that equation. They're going to hate you all the time. There's a lot to unpack here, Seb. And you mentioned him getting a little bit defensive on the media side, but do you warrant the defensiveness that we're hearing him now with the Lionel Messi situation?
I got to be honest here. Maybe I'm the only one in the Futbol Americas universe that is doing this. I got to defend Don Garber on the decision with the MLS All-Star game. I mean, if we accept that MLS is a business first and not a soccer operation, which I think we've established on this show throughout the years since we started back in 2021, the All-Star game is really important. That's where all the sponsors show up. It's a huge egg on your face if your main guy doesn't show. And then if you've got a rule on the books that says guys have to show or else they get suspended and you don't follow through on that, you may as well be in the All-Star game, which might be fine, right? From a soccer perspective, we don't really need All-Star games. From an American sports perspective, maybe you do need it. But you can't possibly have him have this rule on the books and then allow Messi to bypass the rule, not play in the All-Star game, and come right back whenever he wants. That's the rule. It's there for a reason. If you value the All-Star game, do it. And this is Don Garber, Herc, doing exactly what you just said, taking the bullet. Not necessarily for the owners, but for all the other teams in the league who are looking at this and saying, oh, well, if Messi gets off on this one, then we're not going to send our guys to the All-Star game. He's saying, no. I'm going to keep this fair. I'm going to keep this playing field fair, and I'm going to follow through with it. I'm going to be the bad guy. For once, I'm not giving Don Garber the get lost.
There he is, corporate savvy, always standing up for the man. I knew he'd be good. I knew he would be good for one. Listen, I for one, I don't know how Jeff feels about this, but I could care less about if he really thinks Messi won't talk to him. I'm sure Messi probably, at some level, could care less to talk to him. It's a necessary evil, but there's one last person, or the last person, I should say, on planet Earth that wanted to suspend Messi is Don Garber. I could tell you that. Yeah. So much so that days before, or the day of the game, I should say, the day of the All-Star game, he was still making excuses for Messi. I'm not with the idea of suspending Messi when he needs rest. I'm not of the idea of punishing the league's best player because he doesn't want to partake in a circus. I'm not of the idea of withholding information if you're Major League Soccer, knowing days before he went out of 10 to make sure the gate was strong. I am not of that idea, but I could damn well sit here with 100% certainty and say the last person who wanted to fine Messi, who wanted to suspend Messi, was Don Garber.
This was a damned if you do, damned if you don't. I'm with Sebi on this one because it's interesting, Jeff, that whichever decision he made, he was going to be criticized. And like he even mentioned that the stories were already being written, but then it would have been this other side of there's too much special treatment for Lionel Messi. But on the business side, how tough is this for Don Garber, knowing the negative repercussions business-wise that this could have been for him and that this was for him and the All-Star game and now all this media attention? How much is Don Garber thinking of this when he has to suspend or not suspend Lionel Messi?
Well, listen, I mean, Don Garber gets paid to make the tough calls. And if there's one thing I would criticize Don Garber for and the league, it's that they waited until almost the last moment to make this decision.
Yep.
I mean, I think Friday it came out, Friday before their game against Cincinnati, it came out that both Jordi Alba and Leo Messi were suspended. I don't think it should have taken that long. Now, granted, I think there was some back and forth with regards to Jordi Alba about whether he was injured. He took a knock in their previous league game. So I can see where that might have created a little bit of confusion. But listen, I do not feel sorry for Inter Miami or Lionel Messi at all. Everyone knew there was a rule. There was precedent for enforcing the rule with Zlatan Ibrahimovic some years before. And, then otherwise, if you let Messi skip this, I mean, you're just putting yourself in a situation where every other team in the league is going to go, well, Miami's getting away with it again. And listen, Miami has not always been great about following the league rules, whether it was roster rules or anything else. So I think ultimately it was the right decision. I just think the speed at which it was made and the coordination that went on could have been a lot better, and they could have made this decision much earlier than the Friday before their league match.
Seb?
I mean, if Don Garber wants evidence against his first point, right, which is basically, we can accept that we don't have Messi. It's this game. The All-Star game lost all interest the second that we knew Messi and Alba, mostly Messi, wasn't going to play in it. And that's the reason why the first talking point matters. This is not Sports Business Journal. This is Futbol Americas. we should be talking about soccer. But the reality that the men's first division, which drives soccer in any country, is not readily accessible. And that on top of that, that men's first division went out and did the mega thing. They went out and they got Lionel Messi. And now the All-Star game is played where he's not showing up to it. It's not on a platform you can easily access. Think about, to Herc's point, I mean, Messi has delivered on this contract. 58 goals in 70 games across all competitions. Think about that run that would be on SportsCenter, First Take, all of the ESPN universe. And I'm not saying that because I'm an ESPN employee. I'm saying that because I'm a sports fan. You know, ESPN drives the conversation in this country. MLS has missed out on all of that because of the television deal that they're in. And you can't ignore how important it is that Lionel Messi is here and it's not a number one talking point in American, not soccer media, American sports media. And Garber can just look at this All-Star game and say, wow, look, nobody cared about this thing other than the I Show Speed fans out there on YouTube or TikTok or whatever. Nobody cared when Messi didn't show up. And that's a big problem when you've got the biggest star in the world and people, one, don't care when he shows up, and two, when he does show up, have trouble finding him.
Seb's 98% right in what he said. I mean, but nobody cares about the All-Star
that.
games, and that's why they're changing the formats in many sports, because people don't care about these All-Star games, because the players don't care about these All-Star games. The skills challenge, whatever the case, people don't care about these things. But you're right. The conversation would be different if you still had major partners, and not just ESPN, Fox, DOESN, et cetera, the works. That's the problem, and it's also the external program that comes with it. They live in a box, and in that box, there's nobody to talk about that box. If you were still here, or at Fox, or at DOESN, there are shows, external programming that would cater to talking about Messi. And Messi's not per se the late night type of guy. He doesn't run the circuit like a Zlatan or Chicharito or John Terry, Lampard, Gerrard, etc., Robbie Keane. Those guys might have done. That's not Messi. So, or David Beckham, as a producer said, yes, would be a perfect example.
Listen, I think if Lionel Messi saw that there was an actual All-Star break, because if we're comparing, obviously, MLS to NBA to WNBA to what we're seeing, I mean, NFL, it's basically the lead up to the Super Bowl.
So there's an All-Star break, just not for the All-Stars.
Exactly, but that's exactly my point, because there's a break, right? But they don't go immediately back to play. I mean, NBA stops practically almost for 2 weeks before we see it back in action. So maybe instead of changing the rule with the suspension, like Don Garber was, throwing out there, thinking about, maybe that would be a little bit easier, because going back to it, Jeff, this is really the main complaint from Inter Miami, from Lionel Messi himself, then to miss out on that Cincinnati game and then still get injured a couple of games later.
Well, I mean, obviously the rest didn't do him that much good. I think, I can kind of understand why, Lionel Messi didn't want to come, but he has not really embraced an ambassador's role when it comes to MLS. I mean, his media availability is few and far between. Granted, his play on the field has been exemplary, and that matters, of course, and that probably matters more than anything. But I mean, if you look at past guys like David Beckham, like Thierry Henry, those guys made themselves available much more frequently than Lionel Messi has. So, I think that's where really the league finds itself in a bind, is because, yes, this amazing player who they convinced to come to their league, has played incredibly well, but he has not really embraced the ambassador role, and that might not be his personality. But I think at some point, Messi needs to realize that there are some bigger issues at play here, from his presence. And I think trying to, be, a little bit of more of an ambassador, like I said, I think that is important. That does matter. And I think MLS has not really been able to convince him that that's important.
Yeah, he's doing the work on the field, as all of you mentioned at one point. He's a professional through and through. That's something that we said as well with figures like Carlos Vela, with what we saw with Zlatan Ibrahimovic, clearly respecting the game, but being an ambassador for the league, that's a completely different thing. All right, let's take it to Tim Weah. who joins Marseille on an initial loan deal from Juventus with an obligation for permanent transfer. Weah coming off a season where he had only started 18 games, obviously looking for more minutes. Now, this isn't the first time that we see him in France, as before he joined Juventus, he was with Lille, and here he is in his presentation.
Il y avait d'autres clubs, mais pour moi, c'était toujours Marseille. Dès qu'on m'a appelé, c'était ici. Mais c'est chez moi maintenant. Je suis très fier d'être là. Voilà, quand tu vois l'effectif d'aujourd'hui, quand tu vois le coaching staff, quand tu vois la direction, c'est clair que Marseille, c'est un grand club et il cherche à avoir des grandes choses. Et donc pour moi, c'était parfait. Il y a de la compétition ici. Et voilà, on connaît l'histoire du club, hein, les supporters, le stade. Et pour moi, c'est un rêve d'être là.
Est-ce que le fait qu'il ait joué là, est-ce que c'est quelque chose que tu as pris en compte et qui a pu te pousser à prendre cette décision?
Déjà à 100%. Hein. Comme il a joué ici, c'était un rêve pour moi de jouer ici. Je parlais avec lui avant de venir, il m'a dit, il a fait 6 mois ici et il a dit pour lui c'était parfait. C'est une ville incroyable, c'est une équipe incroyable, donc c'était très facile pour moi.
Apparently French is very easy for him as well. It's a perfect French that we're hearing there from Timothy Weah, but I love hearing the motivation behind it. Obviously, not only the project itself, Seb, but talking about his dad, who played for Marseille 25 years past. We'll talk about his dad here in a second, but when it comes to this move for Timothy Weah and what he can do for Marseille, where can he shine the brightest here for his new team?
Yeah, I mean, I think just first of all, we got to say it's a great move. Maybe we should express some sadness because a player leaves a club like Juventus, right? There's not that many players in the U.S. pool or the CONCACAF pool that are playing at the so-called mega clubs. So to see him go from Juventus to Marseille, I know Juventus maybe isn't what it once was, but it feels like a little bit of a step down. But I think it's a much better fit. Obviously, you can tell from the language there. It's a language he's very comfortable in, a league he's very comfortable in, and a team where I think most importantly, he will have, one, a role bigger than Juventus, and two, a more defined role. Because this player to me, and we're always talking about this as it affects the World Cup, is a must-have piece for the U.S. national team. When he is at their best, the U.S. team is much more likely also to be at their best. So I think Weah getting to a place like Marseille, figuring out, is he a winger at the club level? Is he a wing back at the club level? I think that's really, really important in this club year. And I think there's also something worth noting about this move. That is, it wasn't the only option on the table. There were reports a couple months ago about the potential move to Nottingham Forest. That would have been Premier League. That would have been Europa League. That would have been a pretty good setup for Tim Weah. He's the one apparently that turned it down. So if he's being that selective, it makes me think he knows that he's going to be a great fit here at Marseille. And with 12 months to go to a World Cup, what more do you want?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, leaving Juventus. So, Jeff, a step back at the club level, but for you, is this move a step forward in terms of USMNT and being on that roster?
Absolutely. I think, looking at the numbers, I think Weah started maybe 18 matches last year for Juventus.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, there were lots of different competitions, and there were opportunities, but I think this is a way for him to take on a bigger role, and that would be a step forward for him. I mean, I think, since the Qatar World Cup, Weah has not really taken that next step. He hasn't really built on his progress, at club level before that World Cup and then with the USMNT. So, I think this is a situation where, like Sebi said, he's going to be comfortable with the language. He's going to be comfortable with the soccer culture. And, he's going to be counted on to take on much more responsibility. And I think if you're Mauricio Pochettino, you're thrilled about that. You want to see your players taking on more responsibility. You want to see them have more be asked of them. And so, I still think Tim Weah is a wing player for the USMNT. I mean, I think just his pace alone and ability with the ball, I think that's something that is in short supply in the U.S. player pool. So I think a lot of things line up for both Tim Weah for Marseille and for the U.S. men's national team. I think this is a great situation that he's moving into.
I'll tell you where he won't be comfortable, and that's with Roberto De Zerbi. Now, this is a very stern, very firm coach. We've all seen the viral video of Cone, the Canadian international, pretty much being yelled off the training pitch by Roberto De Zerbi, and the call your agent. He's going to be a firm hand. But I actually think that serves Timothy Weah some good right now. This is Timothy Weah who at Lille was a right back, was a left back, goes to Juventus and it was a wing back. And all through those moments, you would see, wow, pretty good assist. Wow, very good play. Wow, pretty good goal. So he doesn't have a lot of mileage in those legs in the last couple of years. Since Qatar, at the club level, Timothy Weah has been non-existent. If he could find good form, find discipline, I mean discipline in the best possible way, not like a kid who gets in trouble off the field, but on the field, find discipline to find your position as a winger and to maintain it. Do what it takes day in, day out on the training field to earn your spot every single weekend. Be an impact player with Marseille. This is going to be one of the defining moments in Timothy Weah's career. He's in a place that, because of his father, the limelight will be on him. He's in a place right now because of the World Cup where it's do or die, ahora o nunca for this player, and he still has much to prove to Mauricio Pochettino. We hold on to players when it comes to the U.S. men's national team of what they did with Greg Berhalter, of what they did in Qatar. We can no longer keep that same stance or that same bar with these players because Mauricio Pochettino has proven he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's proven that he'll go with a Major League Soccer player. He'll go with the player who proves it to him in that training session. So if I'm Timothy Weah, this has to work out because there are a lot of players right now. If the biggest player in the U.S. men's national team pool, in their orbit, Christian Pulisic, is in doubt, not for me, but is in doubt for many, what do players like Timothy Weah have to look forward if they're not on? What do they have to look forward if they're not playing well?
I mean, it's the mentality of you're only as good as your last performance. And that's what we've seen, as you said very clearly, with Mauricio Pochettino. So for Timothy Weah, a lot of motivation for the World Cup roster. But I mentioned his dad, and we know that he mentioned himself that was a big motivation, a big reason why. And this is brilliant because ONS magazine did the exact same pose with his dad, with the same jersey, and now with his son,
which one is
Timothy
George?
Weah. I know,
I was about
right?
to say,
On
did they
the
just
left.
cut and paste?
Yeah, he
What's
looks
going
good.
on?
Sebi, what do you think of this? Brilliant, right?
Very, very cool. Very, very cool. Can only imagine what it means for a player to go play somewhere where his father played. And just to follow up on the point that the boys were making, we fell in love with this kind of golden generation way among them for the clubs they were playing at, right? And something I think we might have found out last summer is that big role is greater than big club. If you got guys who are playing at big clubs but have small roles, when they're called to have a big role for the national team, things can go awry. So Tim Weah, who I think should have a huge role for the national team next summer, having a much bigger role at a smaller club in the year leading up to the World Cup, I think is massive. And there's probably a few other guys in the U.S. pool that you could point to and say the same thing about.
U.S. men's national team. How about this from Borussia Dortmund? They announced their squad numbers today, and one noticeable change was that of Jobe Bellingham, who will now have Gio Reyna's formerly number 7. Reyna will now wear the number 21. He had been wearing the number 7 since 2021 upon his arrival here with Dortmund. Jeff, is this something, nothing, or everything? This maybe little message that Dortmund is sending to Reyna?
Well, I think this is just the latest sign that Gio Reyna needs to leave. He needs to get out of Dortmund and find a better playing situation. Obviously, Parma has been in the mix. That's kind of gone quiet in recent weeks, but Parma just recently sold Simon Sohm to Fiorentina for about $20 million. So I think the hope there is that, with that cash on hand, the Gio Reyna deal can go through. But obviously the two sides need to agree on price. So, until that happens, Reyna's going to be in limbo a little bit. But listen, his time this summer would have been much better spent with the U.S. men's national team at the Gold Cup. I mean, because for Dortmund, he barely played. I mean, it was like, 12 minutes or something like that. So, for them to take that number away from him, I mean, clearly it sends a signal that, the latest signal that they are not counting on him to be a big-time contributor in any way. And, he really needs to move on. And, the question is, will he do it? I mean, he's had opportunities before. He's had, there was the loan to Nottingham Forest that just didn't work out on any level. He could have gone to other places that I think would have offered more playing time. So he needs to make a decision to leave, and then it's got to be the right decision in terms of what club he lands at. I mean, I think Serie A would be a good landing point. But, obviously everything has to line up. The clubs have to agree. He has to agree. And hopefully this gets done in terms of his reported move to Parma, but we'll see.
I mean, Seb, will this be the straw that broke the camel's back here for Giovanni Reyna?
I mean, it's pretty clear Dortmund don't value the player, right? What did Jeff say? 12 minutes at the Club World Cup. They're giving away his jersey to the newest signing. It seems they only value him when it comes to the number attached to him on the transfer market. Just a few months ago, they were asking for like 18 million. Now it's down to 12. I think Jeff mentioned in the Parma deal, Parma's offering something like, 6 or 7 million? I mean, the difference between 12 million and 6 or 7 doesn't sound like a lot in the world of football finances, right? It's only $6 or $7 million, but it's double the valuation, right? Like Dortmund has set this valuation so high that a Serie A team is coming in and their best offers is half of what Dortmund wants. Look, Dortmund at this point, this is an academy kid effectively for them. Whatever they sell him for, they're going to make money on it. They clearly have no use for the player. We've pointed the finger at Gio Reyna, and certainly what has happened at Dortmund, his failure, if you want to call it that, at Dortmund, a lot of that lies at his feet. But at this point, Dortmund just needs to let him go. 4 million, 5 million, 6 million, whatever Parma's willing to give, get him off your books, let the player move on, and let your team move on. It's over. And guys, we've been doing this segment for like 2 or 3 years on this show. I don't want to come back in another year or two and have to do it again. Dortmund move on. Let's get Gio somewhere else, and let's see what he actually is as a player.
Yeah, unfortunately for Sebi, Dortmund doesn't care what Sebi says. They want their money. And Sebi may say they've not invested a lot in him because he's an academy player, but they've invested plenty in him. But when he went to Nottingham Forest, they actually gave him a new deal with the idea of selling him and recuperating some good money. Not too long ago, and I know Sebi, I know Jeff, I know everybody listening and watching this show will remember that he was one of the youngest players on Dortmund, one of the best players in his category around the world. He was one of the wonder kids, the next one to blow up. And he was playing at Dortmund, and he was getting good quality minutes, and he was featuring for the U.S. men's national team. And he went to the World Cup at 18 years of age. So a long time ago, this kid's ceiling was through the roof. Well, literally, was somewhere else. It was asking Christian Pulisic numbers of him. That's the road he would have gone down. And we know Christian Pulisic went to Chelsea for 70 million. That was their plan. That was their plan. That's what they thought for him. So they rewarded him for it, even when he didn't deserve it. When he wasn't playing, when he was getting constantly injured, when he couldn't be on the field, they rewarded him with a new contract, with longevity, with security. So I understand Dortmund here. Dortmund have committed to the kid for a long time. They want to see something come out of it. So if the evaluation was 18 million and one team is saying 6, it's not just, hey, let him go for free. This is a business. And part of that business...
What's his value sitting on the bench another year?
It doesn't matter. That is their prerogative because that is their product.
But if they're doing it for money, take the money now.
So if
you're not going to play him for another year.
If the player wants to let his career waste away, that's on him. Dortmund are fulfilling their end of the bargain. And what they want to do is recuperate some of that loss because to them, this has been a loss. While Sebi may say this is an investment because he's an academy kid, no, he's not an academy kid. He came from New York. It's not like they brought him up through the ranks.
But you don't want to stifle the kid,
well,
too.
He's already, no, Dortmund don't care about stifling the kid. Dortmund think about this as a business, as about a product.
Morally speaking, that would be the
that's on Giovanni Reyna stifling himself. Because you can say you're wasting away.
You think there's a $15 million bid out there for Gio Reyna? Do you honestly believe that?
I think Dortmund is well within their right to say, you know what? It's not $6 million. We're going to get 10 out of this. We're going to get 9 out of this. Whatever the case may be, because they have that right. And here's the other thing, okay? Jeff is saying right there, wasted away. He would have been better off with the U.S. men's national team this summer. Excuse me, Jeff? He was with the U.S. men's national team during the Nations League in the Final Four. This kid, when they needed a goal, they looked down the bench, they saw him, and they said, Mr. Pochettino said, nah, I'm good. I'm okay. Not today. So I don't know. I think this is more on Gio. And Seb, you're right. We've been doing this segment for 3 years. When is it on Gio? When will it be on Gio?
It'll be on Gio when he gets to a place that's actually going to play him, Herc. And we know Dortmund isn't that place. Okay? We know he's not at the level of Dortmund. Can we move on from this conversation
it wasn't at the U.S.
and get into another spot?
When is it going to be on the player? No coach goes against his own interest.
Are you a stockholder at Dortmund?
Seb, no,
are you so concerned that they make an extra few $1 million? I'm an analyst
who's telling you that there's 3 different scenarios for the same player, and he doesn't play. So why is it on the 3 different teams?
3 different teams?
He didn't play at Forest, he didn't play at Dortmund, and he's not playing with the U.S. men's national team. When is it on the
Okay.
player?
A lot of it's on the player, Herc. I said that the first time around. A lot of the issues over the past few years fall at the feet of Gio Reyna. The discussion now is what's going to happen to him. Literally, the discussion is, what is Dortmund doing with him since they just gave away his number? They gave away his freaking number, Herc. It's time to move on.
It's not his number.
How would you feel though? If
that something is wrong with, and I've been there. What is going on with
Exactly.
me? What is going on with me? Because it can't be
How old were you
everybody's
when that
fault.
happened, though, if I can ask?
It's happened many times.
He's a kid.
It happened when I was 18. It happened when I was 27, and it's going to happen
there's
in my career.
nothing he's
This
going
is what
to do
happens
right
to
now to
footballers.
change
You are a
Dortmund's
product.
mind. You're
That's
asking
what you
him to
are.
change
And the sooner you
Dortmund's
realize
mind,
that
and
you're
they're
a
not gonna
product
do
with
it.
a short, the sooner you realize you are a product with a short shelf life, the better. Because it can't be this, woe is Gio. Everybody's treating Gio wrong. Dortmund's a big bad. No, come on. At what point is it going to be Gio's fault? Like, Gio's got to take responsibility here. At one point, can we just say, Gio, it's on you?
I mean, maybe it's time, right?
You just said it. You just said it.
We don't know what's going on.
I don't think anybody disagrees with you, Herc, but at this time, the decision to sell is on Dortmund. When the reports are telling us that everybody's agreed except for Dortmund coming down to the market price, that responsibility is Dortmund's. And I get the point you make that they have the right to hold out for as much money as they want. And that's true. But at the end of the day, they got to get something for this kid, and his value's not going to go up rotting away on their bench.
And I'm just saying we've seen similar situations in Liga MX specifically where we criticize the club for not letting them go for a lower price and then having them stick around in La Liga MX instead of seeking another opportunity, whether it's leading up to a World Cup, whether it's just improving your career period at the club level. But we're going to shift our focus. I mean, actually, we're going to keep our focus not only on Giovanni Reyna, but of course for the U.S. men's national team. Very happy to have our Jeff Carlisle with us because you can read all about this, about Jeff Carlisle's first USMNT big board. We are 308 days away from the World Cup. Some names here standing up, some noticeable absences as well. But when it comes to those noticeable absences, if you read quickly down the line, we're not seeing Giovanni Reyna's name. We're not seeing names like Alejandro Sendejas, Herc, that I know that you love. We're not seeing Yunus Musa as well. Patrick Schulte at the goalkeeping position that is still very much up in the air. When we talk about forwards as well, not only Reyna and Sendejas, but Damian Downs, who we saw get some minutes here in the Gold Cup. So, Jeff, notable players, we're going to start with the players that are missing here. A couple of those that I mentioned. But let's start with the man of the hour, apparently, with Giovanni Reyna. Why is it your decision, at least in this first big board, to leave him out?
Well, I said he was on the bubble. So I want to clarify that situation just a little bit. But I think it's because of what Herc alluded to earlier, where, he was there for the Nations League and, he barely saw the field. And so, when you combine that with his club situation, I don't think Mauricio Pochettino is really looking to him to provide any kind of spark or to be a guy that he can really rely on. So now, can that change? Absolutely. We're talking about a guy who, 16 months ago, was the MVP of the CONCACAF Nations League. And everyone thought, oh, man, this guy's back. He's going to be a huge part of this cycle. And then it's just completely gone off the rails for him. So, but for now, I'd say he's on the outside looking in. I mean, I think, Pochettino, listen, reputations don't count for anything with this guy. And I mean, granted, that will be put to the ultimate test in these upcoming windows. But I think for now, he's not really looking at he's not really looking at Gio Reyna as a guy that is going to be a mainstay. And so, it's really on Reyna to improve his club situation, get some playing time, and prove to Mauricio Pochettino that he is a guy that needs to be on that roster when the 2026 World Cup rolls around.
The reality is Mauricio Pochettino has no idea who Giovanni Reyna is. Giovanni Reyna may be somebody in our pond, maybe somebody in CONCACAF, he's a known commodity. He's not a known commodity around the rest of the world, not to Mauricio Pochettino, who was at one point coaching Messi, coaching Neymar, coaching Mbappe, who was at a club like Chelsea. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't have the context that we do. So what he sees, maybe in camp, is a player that wasn't, in his eyes, good enough to help his team. And what he sees is maybe a player who only played 12 minutes during the Club World Cup. And what he sees now is probably a player that multiple teams have passed on, and his evaluation keeps dropping. So I wouldn't leave him out because I see the context and I see the ceiling, but I could 100% see why Jeff leaves him out thinking of what Mauricio Pochettino will do. I don't think it's that big of a surprise to me. I think Yunus Musa, quite frankly, is more of a bigger surprise to me than Giovanni Reyna here.
Why is that?
Well, because Yunus Musa has played with Mauricio Pochettino. Mauricio Pochettino has actually used him quite smartly in a few instances, and the tactical nuances that come to Yunus Musa's game and where he's deployed him in the different positions he's played. I think he sees more value in Yunus Musa. And quite frankly, Yunus Musa might be having a bad go of it this last season with AC Milan. But that was with 3 different coaches. That was at the end of the Sergio Conceição era. That was a bad Champions League. I don't know if Maxi Allegri is going to have the same feeling about Yunus Musa. Maybe he values Yunus Musa a little bit more. Maybe with the U.S. men's national team, Yunus Musa shows Mauricio Pochettino that, hey, he has to be trusted because he's one of the prime players on that team. I think there's more to Yunus Musa right now in terms of credit than Giovanni Reyna on all fronts, club level and U.S. men's national team level. So that's to me more of an eye or a head scratcher and an eye catcher than Giovanni Reyna and the context around him today.
Sebi, are you more surprised about not seeing Yunus Musa on the list as well?
I think it's really hard to disagree logically right now with leaving Gio Reyna off the list. The headline grabber, the shock factor there is we all know the talent that Gio Reyna is. And I would lean a little bit on Herc here because he was around Bob Bradley when he put together the 2010 team. We also worked with Juan Carlos Osorio in Qatar. He put together Mexico's 2008 World Cup team. When you're building a roster for a tournament, it's kind of like putting together a bag of golf clubs. And you want a club in there for every single type of shot. And I just wonder if Gio Reyna is so unique in the American pool that there'll be a temptation to take him along. That's how I could see him getting involved. Because you just say, I don't need this kid for 6 months. I don't need this kid for a 5-year contract. I need him for best case scenario, 5 or 6 games. And if I can get a moment of magic out of him then, which is what we know he provides, he'll be worth it. The Yunus Musa one to me is shocking. I mean, we're talking about a guy going from a potential, not just World Cup starter, Jeff, but a very effective World Cup starter to not making the team 4 years later. There's a ton of interest. I know he's reported right now to be maybe on the outs at Milan. There's interest from Napoli. There's interest from Forest. That would be either Serie A or Premier League and either Champions League or Europa League. Max Allegri has said recently that he's actually maybe found a role for Musa, so maybe he stays at AC Milan. I just think we could be prisoners of the moment a little bit here with Musa. Give it another year. Jeff, I just don't think the U.S. midfield is that good or that deep that a guy like Yunus Musa is going to get left out. I see why you left him out based on the last 12 months or so. But I just think he's too good not to be on the 26-man list.
Seb, we also don't know,
Where are you going to
Jeff,
play him, though?
Just really quickly, Jeff, we also don't know how Mauricio Pochettino is going to react to Yunus Musa because Christian Pulisic took all the heat. He took all the heat about the players not wanting to come to the Gold Cup. But Yunus Musa asked to not be part of the Gold Cup as well. So we also don't know where he is in terms of good standing with Mauricio Pochettino. So I understand the hesitation amongst most with the season that he had and the way it finished and what it transpired over the summer with the U.S. men's national team.
Jeff?
The problem I'm having is where do you play Yunus Musa?
Right.
All right. Do you play him as a wingback? Listen, if Serginho Dest is healthy and available, he's my guy. I mean, he's going to be my guy in that part of the field. And I don't think Yunus Musa is technically that, suited to that particular role. I mean, when he looked good in the U.S. midfield during the last cycle, it was because he was carrying the ball out of trouble. He had the big body. He could, shake off challenges. But I don't see him as being a super adept crosser of the ball. I don't see him having the skill that a Serginho Dest has. And so, is there room for him in the center of the U.S. midfield? I don't know. I mean, Pochettino hasn't played him there. So and then to have a backup, for Dest, I went with Joe Scally. Now, granted, he has not exactly torn it up with the U.S. either, but, I see him as being a steadier defensive presence as a right back than Yunus Musa. And so, I think some of the issues that Musa had towards the end of the last club season came when he was being asked to play as an outside back. And so, listen, there's going to be a lot of fluidity to this, but right now, I just don't see where Yunus Musa fits into this roster.
Look,
and
I've never been one to defend, Yunus Musa and in his abilities. I once called him a poor man's Darlington Nagbe. But I think for the reason that Seb brought up the analogy of the golf bag, I think for that reason alone, he gets on the team. Because when you're in a World Cup, when you're in a tournament setting, you kind of need those players who are plurifunctional. You need those players who can play multiple positions. And I understand of your question of which position he's going to master, but I actually think his ability to play multiple roles is what's going to ultimately lead him to be of worth to a guy like Mauricio Pochettino.
Yeah, I mean,
but is he going to play?
Yeah.
I mean, is he going to play with Milan? I mean, that's or wherever he goes. I mean, that's also a big concern of mine. And I mean, Pochettino has made it pretty clear that if you're not playing for your club, you're going to have a hard time breaking into the national team. And I think if you're going to be consistent with that, then Musa needs to sort out his club situation. That could mean staying with Milan, or that could mean moving to another club, be it in Serie A or somewhere else. But it's not only a positional thing with me. Is he going to get the playing time that he needs to stay sharp? And right now, I have a hard time seeing it.
Need to look a little bit more sharp than what we saw from him with AC Milan here in this last season, more when his teammate Christian Pulisic, granted it's a completely different position, but he's also been through the struggles of AC Milan and all the coaching changes, and we know that he has been Milan's bright star. Yunus Musa maybe needs to step into that kind of role a little bit more, but then find those minutes as well. Jeff, we just talked about your bubble players. I'm gonna call them, but let's talk about those who burst their way through here on your big board. Luca de la Torre and Tanner Tessmann. Take us through the decision to include these two names.
Well, I think with Luca de la Torre, he has a skill that I think is kind of in short supply with the national team, and that's the ability to keep possession. He is a possession player. Now, I thought he wore down a little bit at the Gold Cup. I think, physically, kind of the physical pounding of playing game after game, it started to tell on him a little bit. But, I think just his comfort on the ball, his ability to play out of tight spaces, I think that's an important trait to have. For Tessmann, listen, I think he's a big body that can provide, a superimposing presence in the center of midfield. Obviously, I would put him like next to Tyler Adams, hypothetically. Now, Tyler Adams did not finish the Gold Cup very strongly, but, it's still an open question as to how much he was being affected by the foot injury that plagued him earlier in the tournament. But, I look at Tessmann as providing kind of that physical presence and also being able to free up a Weston McKennie to play a little bit further upfield. So that's really where I think, Tessmann, has some potential. He looked to have earned the trust of Pochettino, earlier in the Nations League, and then he fell off a little bit. So, I think it's a situation where it's a big year for him with Lyon, and he needs to, build on what he did last year. I mean, obviously he was getting used to a new team, a new league last year, but he needs to take that next step. But certainly he's vulnerable. I mean, it's not a lock by any means that he's going to stay on the team. I think, for De La Torre, again, it's a situation where possession, there are just not that many guys that are as comfortable on the ball as I think he is. And, so that's why those two guys got included.
Yeah, and we're talking about who Mauricio Pochettino really knows at the moment. I know he got to know someone like Sebastian Berhalter, who was left off Jeff's list for the moment. Players like Alex Sendejas as well. Do you agree with leaving these two names out as well, Sebi, especially with how we're seeing Alex Sendejas be so important for America in the last few seasons?
Boy, I mean, I know we talk about the dual nats on this show a lot when it comes to Sendejas, and we always talk about kind of the personal part of the choice, and we don't know what people are feeling in their hearts. forget all that stuff. Just look at it from a footballing decision. I got to wonder if Zendejas right now is looking at this and saying, wow, I made a mistake. And maybe I made a mistake that's going to cost me a World Cup. Because I think if he was in the Mexico pool, the discussion would be, is he a starter or not? And here the discussion is, does Mauricio Pochettino know who he is? Is he going to call him in? Does he see any value in him? So I think from a Zendejas perspective, yeah, that to me, I think seems a long way off just based on his skill and the other guys there. I was surprised to see Luca de la Torre in this. You talk about leaving a guy like Yunus Musa on. That's a player I probably would have included over a de la Torre. What I found very interesting about Jeff's list, well, a couple things actually, since Tessman is one of the people being discussed. Him and Scally were left off the Gold Cup roster, and I think, you correct me if I'm wrong, were fit. So I would have thought that would have labeled them as kind of behind the 8 ball, Jeff, in terms of what Pochettino's thinking of them. But you've got them making the squad here. The other thing that I think stood out to me, Jeff, was your choice of 5 strikers, not 5 forwards, 5 number 9s. And I know we've got a huge pool of guys and nobody has really grabbed up and taken the position. But I would think you could get the same out of 4 pretty much average forwards as you could out of 5. I'd like to save that extra spot for playmaker off the bench, dual nat we don't know about yet, teen phenom we don't know about yet, outside backs, they always get hurt or suspended. I just don't know that you need 5 kind of middle-of-the-road strikers, even on a 26-man roster. But those would be my takeaways from the first big board of 2026.
Well, listen, some of those strikers can play out on the wing.
Yeah.
Haji Wright can play out on the wing. Josh Sargent
You've got
has played
wingers,
out on the
Jeff.
wing. Now, granted,
Over
I don't think
Pulisic?
that's
Over
Josh
Weah?
Sargent's best spot. What's that?
I mean, you got Christian Pulisic on the wing. You got Tim Weah on the wing. You don't need Haji Wright on the wing.
Oh, you do if there's a substitution.
I mean, if there's an injury or, listen, I mean, it'd be in case of emergency, break glass kind of thing. I mean, also, I think it's important to have forwards with different profiles. I mean, think back to the 2022 World Cup. There were 3 central strikers. There was Josh Sargent, there was Jesus Ferreira, and there was Haji Wright. And Sargent got hurt, and then lo and behold, you're left with starting Jesus Ferreira in a round of 16 match against the Netherlands. And we know how that worked out. It was a disaster. And so I don't think there's any harm in picking some additional forwards that have different profiles. I mean, you've got Balogun, who's a guy who loves to get in behind. Sargent's kind of an all-rounder, helps with the link play. Pepe is the ultimate poacher. I mean, that guy just finds himself in good spots. You've got Haji Wright, who's, kind of versatile in terms of the positions that he can fill. And then you got the big body in Patrick Agyemang. So really, that's what I was going for in picking those 5 forwards, was finding guys with different profiles. I mean, you talked about it earlier, I think, where, listen, it's a tournament, and you want to be able to handle any kind of situation or any kind of type of scenario where, hey, if I need a big body, it's Agyemang. If I need a guy to get in behind, it's Balogun. So really, that was what I was thinking of. And like you said, I mean, listen, if everything works out, Christian Pulisic and Tim Weah are going to log the vast majority of minutes, and the outside wing. And, then we'll see if guys like Malik Tillman and Diego Luna can make contributions off the bench. But, when it comes to the forwards, that was my thinking.
Yeah, I have no problem with taking forwards of a different profile, one that could play as a winger or elsewhere. I would not take 5. I would use the extra player. I would make a decision on a Josh Sargent or Patrick Agyemang, and I would take an extra player in the midfield or even a third center back.
Yeah.
Because as this tournament goes along, if you are to make a deep run, certain games call for certain tactics, and I know Mauricio Pochettino's never really deployed a line of 3 with 3 center backs, but maybe a game calls for that. You need to have a little bit of depth there. Luca de la Torre is a guy that played 0 minutes in Qatar when I thought he should have played in Qatar. And he's having a bit of a second coming now with San Diego FC. But certainly in the games that we've seen at the U.S. men's national team level, at the CONCACAF level, they've not been breakout performances. Now, I'm not advocating for a guy like Johnny Cardoso, who's not had those breakout performances either, but I would assume that a Yunus Musa, who's proved it, been there, done that, would go over a player or 2 players, I should say, that don't have the same credit. Again, Mauricio Pochettino's not seen these guys, so it's up to him. Where splitting hairs, really, unless one player can play multiple positions. And as far as Alejandro Zendejas, I disagree with Sebi. It wouldn't be a question of, is this a starter? He would be an absolute star. Zendejas would be an absolute star with the Mexican national team. He'd have a lockdown place. They talk about him in Mexican media circles because he's on the biggest team in one of the biggest teams in Latin America, the biggest team in Mexico, and he's going to be a legendary player. That's 4 straight finals where he's been one of the 5 players, pillar players that have been playing every single final. He's an impact player. He's the new number 10 now at Club America. I'm sure there are times where he starts thinking to himself, I chose wrong. Feelings aside, if it's just strictly on the field, how could you not? It's a normal human response. This kid sees the players he grew up playing with, Christian Pulisic, he sees Luca De La Torre, he sees the likes of Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie. He sees where these guys have played. He's like, wait a second, I was here with these guys. I'm killing it here. Why can't I get noticed? I quite frankly don't see what Mauricio Pochettino sees. I saw a guy that when he called him up in the first camp, the game against Mexico in Guadalajara, thought he was one of the few players that kind of showed up. So I thought he had a leg up on some of these players. But Mauricio Pochettino doesn't see it that way. It doesn't mean he can't come back into the fold, but certainly at times you must feel for the guy.
And it's something that I don't even have to say that Zendejas' decision, as you just mentioned, is a very personal one. And for him at the time, it was the absolute right, no-brainer decision to choose the U.S. men's national team. Or maybe it wasn't a no-brainer because of how difficult that decision is at the end of the day.
Maybe it's still a no-brainer for him, but it's 2 different scenarios. One, you're pretty much a guaranteed starter in my eyes, and the other one, you're a death piece.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because you're a starter on a team that just won back-to-back championships, back-to-back here with America. But for now, we have to say our goodbye and thank you to Jeff Carl. We do want to remind you that USMNT big board, the first one, is available on ESPN.com, and ESPN FC is available daily on ESPN+. We did not forget about Leagues Cup Round 3. We will never forget about that guy. Lionel Messi looking on, recovering from injury here, facing Pumas. Jorge Rubalcaba opening up the scoring here, Herc.
All right, Cal State Riverside. Look at that. Alumni showing up. It's a good run. Excellent ball. Great finish.
Yeah, not long, though, before we saw a reaction from Inter Miami. Luis Suarez finding Rodrigo de Paul. First one for the club.
I mean, it's terrible defending, but look at the great ball by Suarez. Very calm, collected, outside the boot, puts it in.
Got 2 guys coming at him, and hey.
Look at the fashion on Messi, all right.
Yeah, bringing it.
Antonella
Interesting.
dresses him.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. 56th minute here. Velasco Segovia tries to bring it down. Hits Jose Caicedo there.
I have a bit of an issue with this. I didn't think it was a penalty kick. Yes, it hits his hand, but what can he do? I mean, he's so close to the ball, and then this chip by Luis Suarez. Come on, Paul is getting his debut here. You can't chip him like that. El Vaquero.
That's a great celebration. We saw Keylor Navas looking on. He is suspended for this one. And then the 3-1, courtesy of Tadeo Allende.
Yeah, Allende gets the goal, but what a filthy outside of the foot pass by Luis Suarez. Luis Suarez was amazing this game.
Yeah, he really was. So it was no Messi, no problem. But it's a problem when it comes to the bigger clubs that we were seeing here in Leagues Cup. Club America, Columbus, LAFC, San Diego FC, Chivas, Cruz Azul, Monterrey, Pumas, all of these notable teams have been eliminated from the 2025 Leagues Cup. And we just saw LAFC, and I know we talked about this on Ahora o Nunca, and you were expecting this, a alternative lineup that we saw from LAFC. But Sebi, when we see this list of big clubs in this it feels still very new, Leagues Cup, how seriously do you think they're taking it?
Yeah. Before we judge anybody, we should say there's still a couple games going on tonight, right? So we don't know exactly who's surviving, who's not. I think when we say clubs taking it seriously, we're talking Mexican clubs, right? I don't think there's been as much doubt or questioning about how Major League Soccer clubs view this tournament. The discussion is really how serious do Mexican teams take this tournament. I could take you back to last year, and especially in the first couple games of the group phase last year, it felt like the Mexican teams were not taking this tournament seriously at all, especially some of the big boys. They were 3-4 games into their regular season. Herc, you know I got a primo who likes to throw some money on games. He was always keeping a very close eye on the lineups. And early on, you can see when a team's not taking it seriously by their lineup, right? Everything else is kind of subjective. You can say, oh, you know, Cruz Azul got killed by Sounders on the day. Maybe Sounders were great. Maybe Cruz Azul was terrible. But when you see a team's lineup, that tells you just how seriously they're taking a competition or not. And what I would say is through the first couple rounds of games so far here, I do think that the Mexican teams are taking it more seriously than they did last year. They're not taking it as seriously as they would the regular season, nor should they, but certainly more serious than last year. And I think, as confusing as it is, the format kind of helps in that immediately it gets you to MLS versus Liga MX, which seems to take up the stakes at least a couple notches in these games. And the other fact that there's no wiggle room this year. There's no real margin for error. You basically had to win all 3 of your games, or maybe 2 wins in a draw or 2 wins in a penalty shoot victory to kind of get through. I think so far through this tournament, we have to say that the Mexican teams have been much more competitive than they were a year ago.
They're taking it seriously. They're just not winning. That's the reality. America took this very seriously. They've not won in 3 games. They took 3 games seriously. They've not won. Cruz Azul took Seattle very seriously. They ate 7 goals.
Yikes.
Chivas took their opponents seriously. They could not win. We go to Pumas taking it seriously. We go to Monterrey. Your Monterrey took it very seriously. They've not won. That's the reality. Now, I'm not a fan of the format by any means. 1 game that you lose, you are out. That's not a proper competition, okay? Spain, when they won the World Cup, they lost their first game. Argentina, in last World Cup, they lost to Saudi Arabia. If this was the league's cup, they would be out. They wouldn't be World Cup champions. So I don't like the format. But we can't sit here and say they are not taking it seriously. If anything, because of the format, they've taken the first game seriously. And once they lose the first game, they're like, well, my odds are diminished. Maybe I take the second game less seriously. If anything, the only team I could think of not taking this game seriously, not taking this format seriously, is LAFC. LAFC, who out of 3 lineups trotted 2 alternate lineups, and excuse me, I should say, with one of those alternate lineups, beat Tigres, beat one of the favorites in this competition with a second team. So they're the ones who are not taking it seriously. The rest have taken this seriously. I would say for the first and second game at least, because one of the terrible things about this format is by game 3, Salt Lake versus Querétaro, both teams are out. You've got nothing to play for. The fans aren't going to show up. The teams are going to be B/C teams if they have the depth. They're not going to take this game seriously. But in terms of the big teams taking this seriously, the Mexican teams taking this seriously, yeah, they took it seriously. They just took their L's too.
So, victim of a circumstance, we could say, Seb, because of the format, but when it comes to disappointing exits here from the Leagues Cup, who is the more disappointing eliminated team for you?
Cristina, if you make me pick one team, as the Americanista, I'm going to have to pick Club America. But I actually think, not just because they personally disappointed me, you can make the case that this team was the most disappointing in this competition. You know, first of all, this is not happening in a vacuum. They have struggled in Leagues Cup year after year after year, and this comes on the heel of the frustration of not making the FIFA Club World Cup, the frustration of going out in the semifinals of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which they probably would have won, and the frustration of losing finally in a final to Toluca. So there are big game defeats that are starting to pile up for America, and that's why it's disappointing. The other factors that make it disappointing are, 1, they have higher expectations than literally everybody else, and 2, to Herc's point earlier, one of the flaws in the format of this tournament, they were eliminated in 2 games. Come on. Club America has huge fan base here in this country, and they were gone in 2 games. For me, that has to be the disappointment of the tournament if you're making me pick one team. But I think there's another disappointment here, Cristina, and that is from a Major League Soccer perspective. There's a lot of big markets that are not advancing in this tournament. We don't know what's going to happen later tonight. We got games going on now. You could have a scenario where both New York teams, both LA teams, Houston, San Diego, a bunch of either big markets or markets where there's a huge Mexican population that would definitely engage with these games. Atlanta's another one that could be out. And if MLS loses its, not just its big markets, but it's great Mexican-American markets as well. That's going to hurt this competition. So I think there's disappointment on all sides. From MLS, it's more league-wide. From Liga MX, boy, it's a shame that Club America cannot get into and then stay into some of these big tournaments.
Can we stay production on this frame, please? How we are right now. I'm going to tell you who my biggest disappointment is, but I've got to talk about, in general, what Sebi's talking about. It's not just the Major League Soccer markets. Look at this screen. You have Los Cuatro Grandes, the four historical teams, okay? In Liga MX, the big players that move masses. You've got a big spender like Monterrey, who could be a Manchester City, a massive spender in the Americas, not just North America. You've got two big teams in LAFC and the Columbus Crew who play good football, who can potentially beat teams on any given tournament to make a run for you, and a brand new franchise with your child now, an expansion team in San Diego with Chucky Lozano. This is detrimental to this tournament. These teams are out. Most of these teams were out 2 games in.
Yeah.
This isn't what you want. This format is for an MLS team to meet a Liga MX team in the final, but they are praying it's one of these top 4 Liga MX teams versus a big team, preferably Inter Miami and Messi, but it's blowing up right in their face because of the format. Now, I digress. I will go into my biggest disappointment. I was going to say Chivas, Seb, I really was, but I don't expect anything to Chivas, and I say that respectively.
Right.
I say so respectfully. I'm not of, well, Chivas es un grande, Chivas has history, Chivas has power. They have no, Chivas you got to measure on a different scale. It's not the same Chivas as old. It's Cruz Azul. It's Cruz Azul. This team decimated the Vancouver Whitecaps in a final, not a friendly, not a Leagues Cup, in a final 5-0. They're one of the biggest spending teams in the Americas. This is a team that went out and provided Georgios Giacomakis with a $28 million package.
Period, with what we saw from Cruz Azul, or didn't see from Cruz Azul, if they were going to lose by that much. But speaking of the Liga MX, we're very excited for what's to come. Necaxa, the series premiere, will be tonight on FXX. And of course, at the center of this project is La Patrona, Eva Longoria, who sat down with our Lizzie Becerano.
You invested in Necaxa in 2021, helping bring in Rob and Ryan. How was that ownership opportunity introduced to you, and what did you know about Liga MX prior to investing?
Well, I didn't know a lot about La Liga Mexicana. I am part of an investment group that invests in many sports. Angel City was my first investment in football. And then I have a pickleball team and a paddle team. And my group came to me and they said, we're thinking about investing in La Liga Mexicana. And they proceeded to tell me the audience numbers, the amount of fans worldwide. I was just blown away by the enormity of the league. I mean, it is a big league full of talent. And so I knew it was a no-brainer. And anytime I have an opportunity to put a positive image of Mexicans on the screen, small screen, big screen, I take it, because I think we're in a moment where we need to remind people of the positive things that come out of Mexico and of our community. And so for me, more than a business opportunity, I knew I wanted to tell their stories. And I always knew I was going to do a docuseries when I first invested in the team.
Awesome. A huge point of controversy right now in Liga MX is kind of that lack of promotion and relegation, in contrast to what we see obviously with Wrexham. Had promotion and relegation been put in place when you invested, would you have still considered investing? And would you like to see promotion and relegation in the future?
Oh God, that's such a good question. And you know, it's such a hot topic. I like that there isn't the promotion. I like that we're all just in the league and we have playoffs and we get in and we get out. That whole promoting and demoting thing is so stressful to me. I couldn't even imagine that format. And that's the difference between Welcome to Wrexham and Necaxa as series, is we don't have that demotion promotion aspect of it. And so the stakes are different. And I feel like for us, especially as Necaxa, we have such a legacy as a club. We have such history from these glory days of these championship days. So living up to the legacy, trying to return to those glory days is what the journey is about. So yeah, if we had, I still would have invested because I still think investing in Mexican soccer in particularly, it's one of the most competitive leagues in the world. We produce a lot of talent and amazing players that do travel worldwide. And so, yeah, I still think it's a great business opportunity for sure.
I love the honesty, the transparency of making that business decision or not making that business decision in regards to promotion relegation. Seb, what did you think of that from Eva Longoria?
Well, I appreciate her honesty to your point, but I think it's totally misguided. One, just from a drama, like show-making perspective, not having promotion and relegation for a club like Necaxa would make this show way more interesting. But bigger picture, we've talked about it a lot. Ever since Mexican soccer did away with promotion relegation in 2021, the national team has pretty much gone in the crapper. So I think the lack of promotion relegation is a huge problem for Mexican soccer. I appreciate why Eva Longoria wants to keep her team in the first division, but if it were up to me, all of this new investment, and apparently Necaxa is not alone. We just saw Querétaro bought by a company out of Louisville. We see Atlas. Reportedly, they're asking $400 million for Atlas. There's a lot of money coming into Mexican soccer right now. Hopefully, some of that money goes to creating enough teams to have promotion and relegation, and the rest goes to infrastructure because it's needed.
Yeah, you're talking about Mark Spiegel in the group out there in Querétaro, who also publicly stated that if promotion relegation was a factor, he probably wouldn't have spent $120 million and invested in Querétaro. Listen, Seb wants to teach Eva Longoria now how to produce shows and tell her what to do with her business. It's her prerogative. The only thing I will say is the heart of Necaxa over the last decade more has been promotion relegation. This is a team that constantly was going up and coming back down and was always in the fight and always knew that at the heart of that, it was the competitive side, the competing of trying to come up to first division. So it's something that is part of the club, and not to showcase it, it is a shame.
I mean, I understand her part of not wanting to stress out about it, but when it comes to the level of Mexican football, that is one of the biggest mistakes that the Liga MX has committed over the years, is the elimination of the Pro-Rel, and also kind of lying and saying, oh, it's temporary, but they seem to just keep stretching that out. But we very much look forward to Necaxa, this story that will unfold obviously on FXX, but you can stream it the next day on Hulu. Speaking of streaming, speaking of watching, speaking of drama, Ahora o Nunca, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on ESPN Deportes and on YouTube. Hey, it's extra sunny in Los Angeles thanks to the official presentation of LAFC's newest member, Son Heung-min. The former Spurs star comes in with a record deal in MLS worth around $26 million, surpassing that of Emmanuel Latte, worth $22 million for Atlanta United last winter. And he sat down with our Katia Castorena.
Sonny, welcome to LA. You said LAFC wasn't your first choice, but what changed your mind?
It was not my choice. I mean, this is not anything but the first call when I had with John, and he just gave me the vision of the club and the way he wanna progress with the clubs and moving forwards. I think it just changed my mind, and also it was not just the club commitment, you know, and it was just not right now. They wanted me like quite a long time ago. So obviously me as a football career, I wanted to be that guy. I want to go where the people most want me, you know. So it was LAFC, and I'm very happy to be here, and big credit to John to change my mind.
We all know how much MLS has grown over the years, but in the last 2 years, we've seen the Messi effect. How much having him here in the United States has changed that perception around the world?
I mean, it's huge. I mean, we are very lucky to Lionel Messi playing football, you know, and same generation, watching him playing and scoring so many goals and joining MLS. I think it will affect so many players, and it also affect me that what he done for this club and for his country, and yeah, it just also changed my mind. So yeah, we are just all lucky that watching him to play, and I'm very lucky that I can share. Sorry, it's too hot. No, I'm joking. Yeah, we are very lucky, and I'm very lucky that sharing same pitch as him.
Last one, there's a big Korean community here, but also a big Mexican community here. Carlos Vela was their first signing in 2018 during that World Cup when Korea played Germany, and you scored during that stoppage time. I don't know if you remember, but the Mexican fans were thanking the national team because they were able to go through, and they were saying, "Son, ya eres mexicano." More so now that you're here in LA, "Son, ya eres mexicano." What do you remember? What do you say to those fans?
I mean, I hope they don't forget these memories, and I hope they can support me like this back in the days in 2018. So, yeah, I hope I don't forget this memory, but I hope also the fans, the Mexican fans, don't forget this memory. So, obviously, back in the day, so we were out of the group stage because Mexico didn't win against Sweden. We felt really bad about it, but Mexican fans I was very happy about. So yeah, so I gave them something, so it's time you guys give me something back. So can't wait to see you on the pitch, on the stage, in the stadium. So I need your big support.
No pressure, but when we you know what I'm gonna say, right? But when a World Cup comes, we're expecting a win here in Los Angeles for the USA, aren't we, everybody? And there you go. And so we're here to support you to get that done.
Listen, we don't blame LA Councilwoman Heather Hutt for wanting to recruit Son Heung-min to the U.S. men's national team. Sebi, you were laughing already. What do you think of what just happened?
I mean, I feel like I've seen this clip before, right?
Yeah,
we got all these non-soccer people showing up to these big soccer events, and they don't know what they're talking about. Can somebody, like, there's definitely a PR staffer who speaks to this lady before she gets up to the mic. Can that person do a quick soccer Google and just figure out that because he's playing for LAFC doesn't mean he's going to represent the United States in 12 months' time? That would have been easy enough to figure out.
Yeah, it's that you had
We don't do ourselves any favors here in the U.S.
Right.
Huh? We're mocked worldwide for what we don't know about the beautiful game, and then we put people like this in front of a mic.
Yeah, it's that you had one job, and that job wasn't done. But Seb, you mentioned that this isn't the first time that we saw this happen. We saw it with your tocayo, with Sebastian Schweinsteiger's presentation back in 2017 with Chicago Fire. But this question came from a reporter. Let's take a listen.
With your addition to this team, is it a fair expectation to see a clear pathway towards a World Cup competition come out of Chicago?
He's referring to the World Club Cup. Like, he's referring to the World Club Cup. Yeah, the World Club Cup. He's just saying.
Let me rephrase. Do you expect now that you're here, Bastian, that World Cup goal for Chicago Fire is a realistic expectation?
So the World Cup club. Well, not the World Cup. We as a club don't play for the World Cup, but we'll adjust it to MLS Cup.
I mean, a great way to turn it around, but still doubling down on the question is what gets me here, Seb.
It's so much worse from the reporter. From a politician, like, they're just talking suits. You kind of expect it. The reporter's there to the press conference. He gets 2 cracks at it. And shout out to my guy, Doug Hicks, who was working for PR there for Chicago. He was the one that scrambled over to Bastian Schweinsteiger and tried to give him a little 411, tried to help him out how to figure out how to answer that question. But, yeah, you know, it's moments like that that'll go viral, and they'll have the whole world pointing at us saying we don't know anything about soccer.
Yeah, not a great look, but it is a great look to have someone like Son Heung-min in LAFC.
It's an absolute home run for LAFC, who's looking for a prime player, a player still of good age. Listen, since Sonny started playing for Spurs in 2015, only 2 players in the Premier League have more goal contributions. One of those is his teammate Harry Kane, ex-teammate who's no longer with him, and then one is Mohamed Salah. that's the company that he keeps. That's the type of player that he is. That's how good he's been. He's 33, still of a very good age, coming off a difficult year where he still put up double digits in goal production. This is going to be a player that the Major League Soccer level is going to just embarrass people. High IQ, and it's going to be an absolute hit in the South Korean community. I was around with the Galaxy when Heung-min, who was a captain of the South Korean national team at the time, came to play. It's a massive explosion of fans. Fast forward 20-something years later, here is the biggest Asian player in the history of the game coming into a major market like Los Angeles, where there's another Asian superstar like Shohei Ohtani. This is a home run for LAFC. They knocked it out the park here, so I fully expect this to be a hit.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a hit already. The reputation that someone like Son Heung-min has, I mean, Sonny being just a joy to be around, and so that'll obviously translate very well in the locker room. Sebi, thank you so much for hanging out with us on Futbol Americas. We hope to see you back here soon.
Always great to be with you guys.
And in case you missed it, we're staying in LA. Interesting event here from Nike's Toma LA. A lot of stars that showed up for this. Chucky Lozano, Vini Jr., Travis Scott in attendance, some influencers as well. LA's finest, Herc?
Wow, I don't know about LA's finest.
San Diego's finest? Brazil's finest?
It's a throwback to the total 90s. Back in the day, I didn't like these, but then all of a sudden now, it's vintage.
It's the nostalgia.
It's nostalgia, yes it is. That's what it is.
I remember this kit perfectly. I still see a Rafa Marquez in this kit. Oh. And seeing Chucky Lozano wear it.
I see that kit. Well, I just see those kits because they were cookie cutter. But I think of Wayne Rooney. I think of the Total 90 cleats. This is what I think of. And like all the big national teams at the time, Brazil, the US, Mexico, England, they all had them.
I had Total 90s in high school and I felt so cool. The ball was always really great too, but hey, good thing I'm wearing a Nike jersey. By the way, that would have been completely awkward. But hey, we will be back here on Monday. Herc will not, but for a very good reason. You're going on vacation, my man.
Right. I'm tired of you guys. I'm going on vacay.
Oh,
see you when I see you.
I'm glad you pointed that way and not directly to me. But anyway, we'll see you back here on Monday with all of the weekend's activity. Looking forward to it. And of course, the definition of when we'll see the next round here of Leagues Cup with some of that play still going on. See you then.